On April 2nd this year, Nintendo released the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, which looks sick by the way. But we're not here for the Switch 2. We are here for Mario Kart World, which looks even sicker, cooler, betterer, and skibbidier. In all seriousness though, this game looks really good and I am impressed what Nintendo has done with the game. In the Direct, we saw so many tracks for Mario Kart World, but I wanted to create Mario Bros. Circuit, which was the very first track in the game. Also, do please consider subscribing because I'm a very small content creator who is trying to grow. And with that out of the way, let's get started. The first thing I did while making this track is I took a screenshot of the minimap and then imported it into Blender. With the minimap imported into Blender, I was able to just shape faces around the layout of the minimap. And because this is part 2 of making this track, I took some assets from the last video, which gave me a little bit of a head start compared to that. Also, part 1 will be linked in the description below. Unfortunately, I forgot to record making the texture, but I made this first road texture and applied it to most of the layout for now. This time I did record the texture creation, and I made this second road texture and put it on the second half of the track. Next, I added most of the elevation to the track, and I think I got it with pinpoint accuracy by watching the trailer over and over again. Next, I grabbed some more assets like the highway and dirt path and put it into my new model. Once again, I didn't record myself making the road texture, but I made this dirt road on the floating part of the track and then applied it to the last part of the road. Pretty simple task, but ended up taking me like 45 minutes, is that I made the floating part have a thickness which made it look much better. Next, I added some off-road to the floating part just like in Mario Kart World, and I'm not sure why, but adding this made it look really good. Something you should always add to your custom tracks is making support beams, because it makes it look so much more realistic and overall just better. So that's what I did, and I'm happy with the result. Without textures, custom tracks won't look very good at all, so I added some textures to the things I just modeled, which was support beams and some curbs. Next, I revamped this building because the topology was crappy, and now that I've got to see the entire Direct, I realized it wasn't accurate. Next, I added some layers to the off-road of the floating part, as well as some arrows, and then I added a texture to the finish line. Then I added these walls, which didn't take very long, and I'll add textures to them later on. And when I mean later on, I mean right now. So I added some transparent textures to the wall and cleaned up the mess. And a little bit after, I made a simple texture of just a solid color of yellow and then put it on the grind rail. Next, I made a prototype of this trickable pipe and left it at that. Another structure that was not accurate was this ticketing building, so I revamped it. And I'm not gonna lie, I suck at building structures, so for me, this building looked pretty good. This time, I didn't have to revamp anything, because I haven't made it before, which was this building. It has a very simple shape, and it wasn't very hard to make. Next, I added 2 textures to this building, which was the red and white lights, as well with the diner sign. Then, I constructed 2 new buildings, which were these 2, and I added some rock walls around the main track, making sure that I put them in correctly. Next, I permanently borrowed this texture I found on the internet and changed the color to match this. Then I made these bleachers, which was very easy, but somehow I still made it look trash. While I was making the grind rails, I forgot that you're supposed to be able to go to the separate path, but I blocked it off by mistake. So I fixed it, and then I added the lake under the floating road. Then I put this texture on this building, but you may be wondering, well, I thought you sucked at making textures. And that is correct, I do. So that's why I asked AI to make it. And I gotta say, this actually looks amazing. And to cover up this seemingly never-ending void, I added some rocks in elevation. Then I grabbed this texture from this building and put it on this structure. When I saw this wall, I knew I couldn't just let it slip by and use some random metal texture, so I made one of my own from scratch, and I gotta say, it's actually some of my best work. Yes, I know, my best work is still trash, but I'm gonna try to get better at it throughout the year. And okay, this time, this is not some of my best work, and it never will be. Not gonna lie, I didn't even try. I just rendered some clouds, added a color overlay, and added a little bit of noise. And it didn't even turn out that well. Then I added this transparent texture I got from Toad's Factory, and it fit in extremely well. Next, I made a blob texture and put it on the Yoshi fast food restaurant. Then I added this roof over the bleachers, and luckily I did this, otherwise people would be dying due to Funky Kong on the Flame Runner. And now we have finished the modeling part, which means we can start to set up the model and get ready to export. So that's what I did. It took around an extra 15 minutes. I might also just be slow, and you could probably do a better job. Also, if you would like a tutorial about how to make a custom track, make sure to like and subscribe. If we hit 10 likes, I will begin a tutorial series. So once I exported the file from Blender, I imported it into Autodesk FBX Converter and converted it into a .die and a .obj. Then I opened Brawl Crate and began creating the .brres file. If you watched my other video, you would know what it is used for. It is used for containing textures, animations, and even models. Once that was done, I opened Command Prompt and typed wszt cff dragged file. Then I went to this wonderful wiki page, which will be in the description below, and changed the hex accordingly. Once I was done with the KCL file, I imported this into KMP editor and added stuff like checkpoints, respawn points, starting positions, death planes, and item boxes. And now it was finally time to test the track, so I booted up Dolphin and tried it out. So here it is, Mario Bros. Circuit running on Mario Kart Wii. If you would like to see the entire track on this version or download the track, the video and download will be linked in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.